What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Montyverse. Today, we have a very special stream for you. As you know, we covered The Last of Us on this channel, and we did our reaction video a couple of days ago to the fantastic episode 3 of The Last of Us. But a couple of us in the Montyverse crew were talking about the episode, and I just had to do a live stream and bring everyone on because I just really loved how different our opinions were and how different our perspectives were about the episode. So, a part of this panel, we have both hosts of the Fancasted 4 podcast, Mr. Dan Benhausen and Jack Mayer. What's up, guys?
What's up, guys?
What's up,
Welcome
guys?
back to the Montyverse.
Not only that, but we have two pretty hardcore gamers, all right? Two The Last of Us experts, some would say. And that is, of course, Paulina. What's up, Paulina? And Jon Lastrina. What's up, guys?
What's up, guys?
Hi, John.
Hi, Dan.
Hey, so, guys, The Last of Us, huh? Pretty good show.
I'd say fantastic.
Real quick, are we talking about The Last of Us? The Last of Us Remastered?
Oh.
Or The Last of Us Part 1?
We're
Pulling all of it out.
That's a flex. That you basically just flashed your credentials for the entire chat to see right now.
We don't have any credibility anymore, John. This is gonna be all you now.
Here too.
Oh, it's Daddy Joel.
Daddy Joel.
I know nothing about this game.
Joel. Well, all you have to know is Joel's a daddy.
Yes.
Okay.
And Pedro Pascal is a daddy.
Also,
Listen, guys, and we're gonna say shit like that because this is our raw and uncut breakdown. Okay.
That's right.
Of episode 3 of The Last of Us. Now, guys, I don't know who wants to go first, but let's start with Dan because he's the closest to me on screen. Dan, give me your thoughts on episode 3 of The Last of Us. What really stood out and made this episode special for you?
Man, I should have been more prepared to answer this question.
Well, you know what? It could be an open dialogue.
Yeah.
How about that?
I mean, I think what really drew me into this, outside of it being a story that represents not only queer love, but beyond all of that, I think it was just an extremely well-performed episode that, in the hands of lesser actors, could have been really bad. And you have two actors in Nick Offerman and Murray
Bartlett.
Thank you. Keep wanting to say Murray Benedict for whatever reason. Murray Bartlett.
Murray Benedict Cumberbatch.
That's being pretty much the two actors on the screen for pretty much the whole hour had a lot to carry on their shoulders, and they did so beautifully, immaculately, all the positive adjectives I can think of. And I don't want to say too much more because I want everyone to give their thoughts, but I think in the end, and I imagine we'll be talking kind of more about the details of the episode as we go along. While I don't consider myself a doomsday prepper by any means, I caught myself by the end of the episode realizing that I saw a lot of myself in at least probably a modern parallel to what Nick Offerman's Bill's character has gone through in life. Maybe not exact parallels, but still parallels nonetheless that really left me speechless by the end of the episode.
Absolutely. Jack, is there anything you want to say generally about the episode before we really get into the details of the episode?
Well, first I want to say Dan does not have a "Don't Tread on Me" flag. I just want everyone to know that.
Thank you. Thank you for confirming.
In the room, I mean.
Secondly, I have no familiarity with this game whatsoever. I knew that The Last of Us was a video game, and I knew it had a sequel that got controversy online. I had no idea what the story of the game was. I didn't know anything about these characters. I've never seen like a walkthrough or a playthrough of this game at all. So I'm coming into this completely blind, no sense of what the characters are. And I'm watching this with my best friend at college, who is a fan of Last of Us, knows Last of Us a lot better than I do. So she was a little bit more prepared for this episode than I was. I was floored by this episode. This, I think, will go down in history as one of the best episodes of television that's ever been made. I agree to an extent with Dan that the performers really are what make the episode, but I think that the writing for Bill and Frank is so good that
Totally.
like even if you did have lesser actors than Nick Offerman and Murray Bartlett, it would still be a very well written episode. But the weight that they bring to every moment is gut wrenching. I adored this episode. I was in a puddle of tears watching it. I am also an openly gay person, so seeing queer representation like that and seeing, yes, it's sort of a bury your gays trope, but it's done in a way that one makes sense for the universe, so I didn't ever feel like I was being emotionally manipulated into caring about a gay character just for them to get killed off. It felt more like I was being able to see the lives of these two men who loved each other and lived all that they needed to live in their life. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece of art that I will return to when I'm emotionally ready.
Now, Jon and Paulina, both of you kind of differ from the three of us up here on top because you both have experience playing the game. You both are very familiar with the story and are fans of this franchise. So I'd really love some insight from your perspective into what you guys thought of the episode, because from my understanding, as someone who's never played the game, this episode diverged the most from the source material, if I'm correct. So I direct this question to both of you, whoever wants to jump in first. Just give me your thoughts on the episode and kind of as people who played the game, what did you think?
I thought it was perfect. Like, I knew going into the episode what to expect with the interactions with Bill from the game. And hearing that Nick Offerman was casted as Bill, I'm like, oh, that I could see that. That fits really well. I wonder what they're going to do with that. And now I realize Nick Offerman was more than perfect for that role. Like, in the way they told that story. I'm not going to get too detailed. I have a couple more thoughts I want to save for later, but I thought it was a beautiful interpretation that could honestly fit into the game as is. And as a non-spoiler warning, it sets up a lot that's going to be happening in the next couple episodes and later probably in the finale of what happens here.
Whoa, that's some
It's a good tease.
Big teases right there. Jon, before you answer, I have to say, like, when this came out, you were the one really telling us, you guys got to check out The Last of Us. You guys got to check out The Last of Us. I know how much this game and this franchise means to you. So if you want to like preface anything like that you're about to say by like what the game means to you, and if you do have any special thoughts about the game, please feel free to let us know. And also, if you want, you can kind of fill us in on some of the ways the show maybe deviated from the games and what if you think maybe it's for the better or the worse.
Sure. So going back to like now 10 years when the game was first announced, as The Last of Us, I remember that trailer, just like an action scene, Joel and Ellie and like these human being like killing them, trying to survive. I was like, whoa, what is this game? It's like, oh, this is Naughty Dog. This is the team behind Uncharted. One of the coolest, another awesome, great game series. Fun, more quippy, more
Nathan Drake,
lighthearted. Nathan Drake, also a daddy, by the way. But I was skeptical. Oh, this is kind of cool. And then I remember before the game came out, they put a demo on the PlayStation Store, and it was about early in the game. We're in a section that's kind of based off of episode 2 with Tess, Joel, and Ellie. When you first encounter like clickers, basically, mm-hmm. It's a 20-minute sort of little demo. And you remember you're sneaking around learning the mechanics, and then like it just like cuts off with a clicker like in your face. I was like, all right, I don't like spooky stuff, but I think I'm sold just based. I think I can handle this. And then, I spent the $60, got the game, and then, my friends got the game too. And I can just remember all playing, again, the first 20 minutes of the game is happening in the first episode where Sarah dies, and it's like, and you're playing as Sarah, and then it's like, oh shit, is this how this is going to start? And just being completely destroyed, and just like, just your heart melts. I cry every single time I see that scene play it, or even in the show now. But I can just remember texting back and forth with friends, like, "Hey, how far are you? Hey, did you get to this part? Or what have you done?" kind of thing. Or what are you up to? Not trying to spoil things, just so we could talk about what we had played. Kind of like, "Oh, dude, I can't wait to play more." And then having friends say, "Hey, man, this could be a great movie. This is great writing. This is great acting performances." Like, I remember saying, "Yeah, maybe it'd be better fit as a TV series." Not really thinking maybe someday down the road, like, "Hey, Netflix will want to do it or whatever," kind of thing. And then here we are now, almost a decade later. Just so far, I mean, what they've done with these now 3 episodes. I mean, I guess mostly the first 2 episodes, very faithful to the game. Obviously, they made some changes because it's an adaptation, making a game into a television series, and not everything in a game is going to work in a television series. Because in the game, you're playing as Joel's point of view, so you hear about things that Tess was saying that we saw in that first episode. We don't see Marlene and Ellie talk in that first episode, so we're getting more. And they preface this episode 3 by saying, "Hey guys." Again, shout out to Neil Druckmann, the co-director, writer of the game, and then Craig Mazin, who is also writer, show writer too, with him, saying, "Hey, this is different. This is our biggest deviation from the game. We understand that some of you might be upset and might not like it, but
who would ever get upset over seeing 2 men kiss on screen? Who would ever?
But they were saying, our philosophy is, if there is an area that we can improve on something, make it better, we need to do it. We need to try. We need to go for it. Because again, some things just don't work in the game. And I mean, the section of the game, Billstown, is so fun. It's action-packed kind of thing. There's great interactions, but maybe not necessarily would reflect well in a show. And then again, let's just do something. Let's just do something that shows love, which is what the whole point of the story is in the game. It is about love. Let's show a love story. And I'm so glad they did it and they went for it, because it is incredibly beautiful. There was a tweet by Neil Druckmann after the episode aired saying, like, "Why is everyone crying? This is the happy episode." And he's right. It is the happy episode. It is
happy tears.
Yeah, exactly. It's beautiful. It's lovely. And again, shout out to Nick Offerman, who the original Bill was originally supposed to be played by Conor O'Neill, who had to drop out due to scheduling and stuff like that. And I think even Nick Offerman said, like, he wasn't sure he was going to take the role until his wife Megan Mullally read the script and said, "No, you have to do this. You're doing this. You're getting on a plane. You're going to Canada. And you're doing this."
Wait, you mean that wasn't Boston with all those mountains?
That's probably the biggest controversy from this episode.
Yeah, that is my only flaw with the show. I'm from Boston, and no, that is not Waltham, Massachusetts, ladies and gentlemen. That is not Lincoln, Massachusetts. That is nowhere near where I've seen.
Where was the statue of Mark Wahlberg?
Oh,
it's right there.
A little too early. I mean, that was planned for like 2012, And
I gotta give
the deviation, the 2003 demarcation, but they were building it in 2001, but they could never get it built.
They were still trying to get the funding, cost of money to build things.
I gotta give a shout out to our boy Steve in the chat. Dropped a super chat saying, "I say more gay kisses," and
I agree with that, Steve.
Yeah,
more gay kisses,
100%.
more all kisses, more gay kisses, more animal on animal kisses, like puppy kisses, and. No, you guys don't like dogs.
More bushy
more
beard
love?
Kisses. Actually, I like the fact that they both had
more
beards.
More love. With care.
Uh,
and speaking of love, one thing that I do want to talk about a little bit is
this also applies for straight
so
relationships.
Real.
By the way,
so real, Steve.
Steve, I know that
so
you are gay, but
accurate.
as a straight man, I could say this is also accurate for some straight relationships.
Lastrina, I know you talked about love a little bit, and on the game side, in particular, it was not to get too detailed on what happened in the game, but it's alluded through just working with Bill to go through the mission and eventually get the truck that Bill had a partner named Frank. He alluded that he cared for Frank. He had and there was a sense of concern when talking about, relationships and people that you care about in the world and how it hurts you as a person. And eventually you pick up along the clues that Frank, it was his real partner, his lover. So like even in the game, it alludes, it still keeps that same theme of love, just a different way compared to the show.
To that point, and I want to kind of harken back to something Jack had mentioned earlier, I think if we would have stuck with more of what my understanding of how the game went, that would have been more the bury your gaze trope, where here, remember, this is when this starts, it's like 2003. Granted, there's probably been more homophobic times in our life. Yeah, homophobia is still pretty common.
This was something that my friend and I realized after we watched the episode, and it made us cry even more, was that Massachusetts was the first state to legalize same-sex marriage, but not until 2004.
Yeah, so, May 2004. So it would have been like
the universe of the world was like discussion 7 or 8 months away before they could have actually legally gotten married.
So we get to see what this relationship could be like without any sort of societal pressures, just two people getting to be. And honestly, their biggest threat still was other people. They had no worries about the clickers, the fungus, all of that. It was people that was still, and granted, it might not have been relevant whether they were gay or not, but still, it was people that was their biggest threat. And they had each other to take care of each other throughout all of that.
But it took the world ending for Bill to get to that point. Right. And to show this side of him that was, up front when we were meeting him, he seemed rough around the edges, very protected, very guarded. And then when he meets Frank, of course, hesitation, it's a stranger, but he is suddenly welcoming this person into his area. And you can see these hints of he wants to be a more tender, loving person. He wants to open up. The way he adjusts his plate to make sure the rabbit is, presented nicely, the way he pours wine.
The fact that they start on opposite ends of the table, and then in the last episode, they're right next to one another.
Yeah, even just the emotion. Like Frank could not have done that if the end had that sort of growth and vulnerability without this apocalypse happening in the first place.
Well, I want to pick up on that, but first I just want to pull Steve's super chat up. And you're right. I'm sorry. We had our time.
To be fair, I want to go to Vince C's comment because I agree. If you have more issues with Murray Bartlett and Nick Offerman kissing than you do with the fungus kiss earlier, I there's no saving you. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. You're just wrong for that.
There was way more wrong with that than anything that happened in episode 3.
And to piggyback off of Paulina's sentiment, that is part of the reason why I love the casting of Nick Offerman as Bill, because to me it was like brilliant casting, because you have this thought of Ron Swanson in your head, and then he starts the episode kind of feeding into that stereotype, right? Like he goes to the Home Depot, like he has a generator, he's a doomsday prepper,
steals all the food,
steals all the food, loves alcohol, but instead of
makes a steak,
and then you start to see that kind of persona shift a little bit, because as he comes up from the bunker, the thing that draws your attention immediately is the wine rack, is the full wine rack. And it shows the duality of his character. And then the brilliance of his performance when Frank starts to kind of peel back those layers, and you see him physically tense up and become so aggressively afraid and just anxious about feeling these feelings and having these feelings and wanting to express himself. I think that was so wonderful. And of course, to have that contrasted by the gentle, charismatic nature of Murray Bartlett's Frank. It just worked so well for me.
Who is also fantastic. I feel like Offerman shines for sure, and he's the standout. But like Murray Bartlett's been like flying under the radar for how good he was in this episode. Like again, I think you have a bit of an expectation of Murray Bartlett in the White Lotus,
right?
Like he's like a little bit more of a flamboyant like character in the White Lotus. He's like very like put together, very uptight, very like, but also has like anger to him.
Mm-hmm.
There's no anger in Frank, like none that we like really see. It's like it's so loving and it's so tender. And when I'm sure we'll touch on this again later, but like the strawberries is like one of the best things I've seen.
One of the best shots.
His laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you got
so good.
Like I call it the Ron Swanson laugh. That's just the Nick Offerman laugh, but used very effectively there. And to your point, Jack, kind of even going back about the writing, I think one of the most telling lines that Frank has is when their big argument outside, when Frank wants to go kind of touch things up, tend to the lawn, fix up the boutique, and you have the funny lines of like, "Oh, you think the government's all Nazis? The government is all Nazis." But
now they are.
They didn't used to be. But the line I wanted to bring up is when Frank said, paying attention to things, it's how we show love. And I think you see through from that point on how both characters pay attention to things in their relationship. You have Bill's way of looking and paying attention to things. You have Frank's way, and it's kind of this symbiotic, not necessarily kind of opposites attract, but they make up for each other's shortcomings, and their strengths are there to build up where the other person can't. And I think that line in particular is really the foundation for the episode.
Absolutely.
Jump onto that a little bit. I think from my main takeaway from experiencing both the game and this episode was, for me, it feels like a butterfly effect, that the game is what happens when there is a lack of care and love that is shown and reciprocated between two partners. And it turns into a dark ending where they end up saying that they hate each other at the end. Versus the show, when there is compassion, love, and care, it ends up being this positive, loving ending where they even though they both unfortunately commit suicide, but they lived a lovely life together.
Lived a full long life.
Yeah, and it's at the root of care, and that's the advice that Bill passes on to Joel at the end.
Yeah,
hold the ones that you love and care for close.
Absolutely. And to piggyback off of Paulina's statement about this full life, I think the people that get overlooked in this series, because there's so many talented people that work on this series, from writing, directing to acting, is really like props and set design, because they told a story in the background of this entire episode. From the second that Frank goes to that mantle place and he wipes the dust, and you see the barren walls and everything is very, very like empty and untouched and unkempt. And then as the time jumps happen, you see more and more stuff get placed on the walls, paintings, flowers, decorations, and it shows that not only are we seeing that they lived a full and happy life through the actors' performances, but we're seeing through the set itself how much these people lived.
And that's just good filmmaking right there. And I feel like that is something that tends to get overlooked when you are working in television, because television is very much about character, because you obviously have more time to do it. But when you have those little details, like you have like a production designer who's really paying attention to what's going on with that, or you have a set decorator who's like as much in the conversation as the writers are, you see the results on screen, and it's so good. And you also mentioned, I'm going to say one more thing and then I'll like let this go. But like, again, the way that they write queerness is so smart and so good. It's not a coincidence that Frank and Bill have chosen the 80s to mean danger.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. That was something that I think when I watched the episode, I kind of picked up on, but it kind of, through all the other discourse on the episode, kind of fell back. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. It's so brilliant. It's such a good show.
Yeah, that is something that totally went over my head until people told me, and I'm like, wow, that makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated the music details in this episode as well. The fact that Bill and Frank were playing at the piano, and I think the song that Bill got a little upset at then played at the end in a beautiful way.
Yeah, which is the name of the episode, Long, Long Time by Linda Ronstadt, who I don't know
Getting
who
the
that
Kate
is.
Bush treatment right now.
Absolutely.
I had to look her
Deservedly
up,
so.
not gonna- I have to ask Jon Lastrina a question because Jon Lastrina is my game expert, and I need to ask Jon a game question.
Uh-oh.
And of course, I reference Jon in every episode of The Last of Us reaction that I do. I stare into the camera and I mention his name as per our contract. But Jon,
so far you have fulfilled our contractual commitments.
Good.
You did have that looked over by a lawyer, right?
You can do that.
Yeah.
But Jon, anyway, so when this episode aired, a lot of people online, who played the games were upset that Ellie never got to interact with Bill, because apparently they have some pretty epic interactions in the game. So as someone who played the game, what are your thoughts? Do you think I guess the question I want to ask is, do you think what we got is it's okay to sacrifice that relationship between Bill and Ellie because Bill served a greater purpose in the grand scheme of the story with what we were given in this episode?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and again, in the game, it's very fun. I mean, when they first meet Bill, like they fall into one of his traps around town, and he saves them and rescues them. But then like, you know, Ellie like hits him with like a fucking pipe and goes at him, and Joel's like, "Come on, settle down, come on, Ellie, stop," whatever. And they're back and forth. It's so funny and so fun, and just again because Ellie's a bit of a potty mouth. If you haven't picked up on that yet,
No.
She likes to swear, but and it's fun. But the way they did it, but again, it's one interaction or one chapter, and then they're like, okay, hey, Bill, thanks, yeah. It's like
Thanks for the truck.
Yeah, because Bill owed Joel a favor, a pretty big one, and then like, okay, see ya, Bill, because Bill's like, get the fuck out of my town. But I mean, yeah, I think ultimately, with the letter, Bill serves his purpose when it's, you know, the advice to, hey, you know, take care of Tess, and of course, Bill and Frank, they don't know that because Tess is gone, and just like they're gone, and then Joel realizes kind of thing like, shit, you know,
Everyone's gone.
I've lost.
I haven't been able to save
20 years ago. Tess is gone, and like now I've got this kid. So, and I think he realized, like, yeah, I gotta go for it. You know, we don't have to like each other, but you know, I gotta, you know, just, I mean, save who you can save, as what Tess told him in the previous episode. So I think it definitely advanced the story. If you want to see Bill's town and interactions with Ellie, you can play the game on now three different versions, and soon on PC on March 3rd, so in a month. Or you can look up some playthroughs on YouTube. So I mean,
there are options for you to see Bill and Ellie interact. Like,
yeah,
because again, this is an adaptation, and I think it's a right choice to make the show again love and different, brighter lights.
And it further, like this version, this adaptation we got in the television show is I don't know necessarily a foreshadow, but further, I think, demonstrating kind of the path we're going to get with Joel and Ellie, how depending on how you want to look at one or the other, they are both going to essentially kind of pull each other out of whatever trouble or kind of malaise they're in as well. Like I said, I wouldn't necessarily say Ellie has a similar personality to Frank, but I think in a lot of ways, her still being kind of this naive kid who still has this important task is going to kind of pull Joel out of his kind of uncaring rut he's in. And conversely, Joel is going to learn to put himself on the line for this young girl down the line. So I think while personality-wise, maybe there's some more parallels between Bill and Joel than there is to Frank and Ellie, I still think it is kind of a foreshadow to what we're going to get between the two main characters.
They're going to need each other. They're going to need each other. They're going to need to learn from each other. They're going to need to trust one another. Because as Paulina alluded to earlier, some stuff might be popping off, as the kids say.
Whoa.
Interesting talking to people who have played the game about this, because I'm just like, you know what's gonna happen, and I'm just like so in the dark, but I'm so excited to see what's about to unfold.
And I'll give you two a lot of credit, because both of you, John and Paulina, you guys have done a masterful job of keeping all of us in the dark.
Oh yeah, no, they have not spoiled a single thing for us.
No, we want you to experience it live.
Like, not even hints. Like, you guys don't even like show anything. But go ahead, Paulina. Go ahead.
One of the things that I want to touch upon that I think is interesting, and what I've really liked about this show, is that they're really focusing on this world building aspect. And in the game, you meet Joel just in this quest to go get the truck, etc. That's it. But in the series with Bill and Frank, you get to see flashbacks of Bill and Frank actually meeting Tess and Joel, and that initial first reaction, and seeing that they're building a relationship and kind of getting, some more perspective on Joel and Tess and their history and what they've had to go through.
Yeah, because too, in the game, they to that, like Joel and Bill, they know each other. Bill owes them, so they have this working relationship that we see formed in the show.
I also just like the show and not tell of that as well.
Yeah,
they've been doing a really great job of that.
Yeah, I about the flashback, like two things come to mind immediately, and that is more Anna Torv, because as everyone knows, I'm a hardcore member of the Torv team. Hashtag
Torvnadoes.
The Torvnadoes. Give me those Torvnadoes every episode. Give me some Torv time. But not only that, but in that we have some great development for Joel as well in that scene, because when Joel looks at the door and then he looks back at Bill and he says, or lifetimes, like when he says like the fence, or like, oh, I'll get you some aluminum for your fence. It'll last you your whole life. And then he looks at the door and he goes, lives. Letting Bill know, like, oh, I know that you guys are together, and I don't care, and it is what it is. And I think that's some great development for Joel, and as well just to see kind of Bill react to that and to see him tense up again, because it shows that before the world ended, this was a time where that wasn't as acceptable as it is now, and even today it's not really still openly acceptable, as we saw from
Twitter.
As we see from Twitter about this
again,
episode.
It was a really good opening, a really good ending. There's just that stuff in the middle.
That stuff in the middle, man. That's
I liked everything with Joel and Ellie.
But those other guys, I don't know about them.
I don't know why.
Twitter's a whole galaxy of shit. So
yeah, and since we're tackling the subject of the gay relationship, when I watched this show, two things. When I watched this show, what was really special about the whole thing is that they made an episode which was about a very positive gay relationship that spoke to people from every sort of like representation. It's just everyone can look at that and go, this is just a very beautiful love story. Straight, gay, pansexual, no matter what kind of sexual orientation you may have, you can look at this and see love. And that's something that I think really will, like Jack said, make this episode stand the test of time. I mean, people reference the opening of Up and how it represents like such powerful love in such a short period of time. And then this feels like that, but expanded on a huge level. And then also, I would love to know your guys' opinion. I mean, Jack, especially you, Jack and Dan and Paulina to a certain extent, being fans of musical theater. The reference to the boys in the band at the end of the episode, and kind of the show referencing, from my understanding, the game treating this love story like a gay tragedy, and how most gay relationships in media are portrayed as tragedies. And then for Bill to kind of quote the boys in the band and say, this is not going to be another, tragic death, another, so I would love to know your guys' thoughts on that, if that kind of struck a chord, if anyone picked up on that.
I did. Boys in the Band is a great show. If you have the opportunity to read the play, absolutely do, because it's fantastic. They just did a revival recently. I don't know if they might have filmed it.
They did a film.
There's
as well.
a film adaptation. That's right. It's on Netflix.
Right.
Yeah, it's so good. It's just nice to see on screen that kind of representation that I feel like. So Pat and Dan know this. Last couple months ago, I wrote an article about queer media and the idea of barrier gaze. And in that, I talked a little bit about the fact that so many shows will just queer bait to no end. And even when they don't queer bait, it's used as a catalyst, or the gay death is used as a catalyst for a straight character. And what I liked about this is that Bill's death and Frank's death were not catalysts for Joel. Like, it was an important part of Joel's journey, but it wasn't what was setting him in motion. And it's not like I'm doing this now for Bill and Frank. It's so good that they're just like, we're going to take the time to show you a love story over 20 years between these two people. And yes, they have a sad ending, but they don't have a tragic ending. They didn't, like, Frank didn't sacrifice himself for Bill. Bill didn't sacrifice himself for Frank, even though we saw that they would in that moment where Bill gets shot. We see that they would sacrifice one another or themselves for one another. But what Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin and the director Peter Hoare, is that how you Hoare?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. What they do that's so smart is they show us those seeds, and then they give them a real death. They give them, like, even though, like, yes, it's suicide, it's much more like, not like he's going to die regardless. He's going out in a much less painful way now, and that's so good. They take the death and they don't make the deaths painful for the characters, but they give the audience that burden of, like, the emotion of the death. I love this episode. I love this show. I keep saying it, but this episode has it struck something in me. It struck a chord where I'm just like, I don't get this way about pieces of media that often, but there's just something about the way that this episode is done that's so brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reason why I wanted to do this with all of you guys here. I mean, we waited a couple of days just so that we could all get here, because when we did talk about it on Sunday and Monday, we all had such a passionate response and such our own unique perspectives on the episode. We all are looking at it from different lenses and different points in our lives, and just hearing how enthusiastically we all spoke about it, and to have you guys be so passionate and to want to talk about it. It shows that this is something special. This is something that doesn't happen very often in TV, in movies, in mediums, in any medium in general. This is something that is really, really unique. And to hear Jack talk so passionately about it, to hear Dan and Paulina and John and fans of the games come and support this and to praise it, it just shows how great of an episode of television this really was.
Mm-hmm.
When an episode like this can evoke a queer love story set in one of the most dire of circumstances, this post-apocalyptic world. And for me, again, re-mentioning that, like, I see a lot of my own story in Bill's in some ways, and leave me hopeful come the end is a real feat. And not like it could have easily been like, okay, that was a little side story here. Glad we went there, but there was an actual connection and actual emotional weight to it that I'm glad we got. I think it goes beyond a lot of the tropes and, I'll say, the pitfalls that come with representation or lack of representation that we've gotten over the years. And while I'm fearful to a degree that there's just going to be a lot of bad facsimiles of this going forward, I hope this is still a template for how to do it right going forward.
Yeah, there is a very easy way to do this kind of story wrong, but you need the right creative team to do it, and this is the right creative team for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And even what fascinates me is how beautiful they treat the deaths of the two characters in this show, because you have Joel kind of walk up to that bedroom door at the end, and to kind of touch on how this wasn't a tragedy, how this was two people in love at the end of their lives going out on their own terms, and it was treated so respectfully. You have him go up to that door, and he doesn't open it, and they don't ever show you the bodies. They don't show, because the temptation is there in a show like this. The temptation is there to open the door and to decomposing bodies, to see them, and a lesser director would have zoomed in on them holding hands or something fucking
That's the
cheesy.
other thing. It would have been so easy, because that would have been exploitative of the queer community. That would have been like, that would have turned me immediately away from it.
Right.
But they just tie it back to the game instead and show a shot of the window. For those who don't know, a window is the opening loading scene of the game. And that to me just rounds this out so perfectly.
Yeah, I mean it's the breeze kind of flowing through, and then I mean you guys posted in our chat, like I think it was you, John, or may have been you, Paulina. One of you posted the opening screen next to that, and just to kind of have the episode end on you leaving the house, kind of as a facsimile for Bill and Frank leaving the story, and it refocusing back on Joel and Ellie as we follow them from the window. And there's something so beautiful about that, and it's just, again, because it's a peaceful death. The two characters had a peaceful end to their story, and like I said, like Jack said, it's very easy to try and exploit this death for a cheap emotional response, and I think the emotional response we get with the episode ending so beautifully and so sentimentally is that we get a much stronger emotional response because of the slow burn they took the entire episode, that it all hits us kind of at the end when they go walk silently into that room together. And yeah, like we talked about, if they did show the bodies and they did something stupid Hollywood-ish where they zoomed in and they were holding hands, or they were like embracing on the bed and all you see is like two fucking skeletons, like this is Goosebumps or something like that, it would be so stupid and cheap. But again, just to the credit of this team, this entire team working on this show, so very well done.
Yeah, and one thing too with the people also that were brought in to work on the episode, they mentioned like in the companion podcast that's hosted by Troy Baker with Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin, that they brought in members of like the production crew who were gay, as many as they could, to work on it as well. I thought it was kind of cool just to bring in and the director who's also gay too. So I think that was really cool to say, hey, this is an important episode kind of thing too. Like representation is important kind of thing too.
I will say I've got a lot of joy. I think John shared a video of like a compilation of TikTok reactions to the episode where it was all these young women crying, like, I thought this show was about zombies. And like them
zombies infected. God, idiot.
Very guilty of that. I watched it during lunch, and I had to take a longer lunch break than I expected because I needed to compose myself for a good extra 10 to 20 minutes. But truly, I really appreciated that they did this episode because The Last of Us is a very dark game. It focuses on death, panic, the apocalypse, and this really just highlights life and joy and love, and that to me is refreshing. I look at other shows like zombie shows, The Walking Dead, still very dark. So I like that they did something different here.
Yeah, I mean, talking about reaction responses, I was in shock. I don't know if you guys watched the video, but I didn't even process sadness. I was just like, what happened? What just happened? They did what? They're both doing what? Oh my God, no. And then Nikki's over here just like,
what's going on?
When I realized it was gonna be their last day, I kind of just melted into my couch. Like just let everything just start flowing. Like it's. Do you ever watch something because you need to cry? This is gonna be that. Like when I'm like when I feel like I need to let out tears, but I can't. Just put those last like 20 minutes of the episode on and just let it all flow out. It's so good.
He wanted to have one last good day.
One day.
I will say before, like, what's so great about that is because leading up to that, when they both get into bed, when Bill puts Frank to bed, and then we cut to Bill's perspective, and he wakes up, and then Murray is in the chair. Frank, played by Murray Bartlett, is in the background, in the chair, like blurred out. I'm like, oh no. I thought it was like he was going to be all fun-guyed out. He was going to be a pretty fun guy. Because the last time we saw something like that was in the first episode with that creepy lady in the chair. So I was like, oh no. But then like it refocuses, the camera refocuses, and they have that conversation. I'm like, oh, I was not expecting that. So again, good on them to play with our expectations, to play with the horror elements of the series, and kind of like take our expectations and refocus it the way they refocused the lens. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because when Frank was shot, like, and then it flips, and then it's like, Bill was shot, and it flips to you think he's gonna die, and then it flips to, oh no, it's like Frank's the one that's dying.
Yeah, they kept you on the edge of your seat, and I feel like one of the things that exact shot, Pat, in the game, Frank does get bitten, and he ends up committing suicide. One, because he's mad at Bill, but two, he had gotten bitten, and he'd rather take his life knowing that he wasn't lost to the infection. And in my mind, I'm like, oh no, please don't go down that route. So when he was sitting at the chair.
Boy. Yeah, it was spooky. It was pretty spooky. Yeah, that sucks. I don't like that. I don't like I really like seeing the interactions between Bill and Frank, and I don't to have them not interact in the game kind of feels like in retrospect. But again, hindsight is 20/20. In retrospect, it seems like
you don't see Frank alive in the game at all.
It's body and the note. That's it.
That's wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Bill like cuts down thing in body, comes with a letter after Joel gives to him, and then that's it. But you can tell that
they weren't even looking for Frank either. They just stumbled upon him.
That's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy. Well, game people, this is better. This is a lot better.
If you don't like it, go play the game again.
Yeah, I mean, listen. As a comic, to bring this back to the brand, as a comic book fan, okay, we have to understand the difference between adaptation and translations. This show is not a translation of the game; it's an adaptation. And any adaptation, there comes change to adapt to the medium, and I think this is a great change in adaptation.
In continuing with the brand, which Power Rangers would Bill and Frank be?
That's a good question. Nikki, what Power Rangers would Bill and Frank be? I don't know. This is so dangerous. I'm afraid to say any of them because I don't want someone to say, oh, that's completely wrong. Or like, I don't want to say like, hey, Bill is Billy because they're both good at building things, and Frank
Yeah.
is.
Bill is
know.
Zordon, Frank is Alpha. We all know this. Come on.
What does the chat think?
That's fair. What is the
Yeah,
chat think?
Stream,
Hey, chat.
Streamlabs it in. Streamlabs.com/the Montyverse.
Or super chat.
Or super chats, yeah.
But prefer Streamlabs because
No.
hey,
YouTube takes that cut.
Yeah, yeah, and if you haven't liked the video yet, like it. Because
hey, how about hitting that notification bell and that subscribe button if you're not subscribed?
yeah, while you're doing that,
on the socials, yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
hey.
all up there.
At the Montyverse.
man, I feel like just talking about this episode is almost as emotionally exhausting as watching it.
That's why we had to go into the call to actions because I was just so like emotionally wrung out from this.
Yeah.
It's a dense episode emotionally. There's a lot that goes on. And again, that's what I find so fascinating about this show because, I mean, once me and Nikki are done watching it and doing our reactions, like we're so exhausted, we're like emotionally drained, because all of these episodes have been so heavy, and that's a credit I think to the writers for making us fall in love with these characters so easily and making these characters very likable and creating a world that you can understand and still want to be a part of to understand more of. And I think that shows how special this show has been so far. But yeah, it is exhausting, and every Sunday night I am depressed and upset.
Just you wait.
Oh God! Someone, I forgot the person's name. If you're in the chat right now, take credit for this. But someone wrote in our reaction video, "You guys are totally not prepared for The Last of Us." No, we're not. We are not emotionally prepared.
And
Pat,
from what I know, part 2 is also gonna wreck me.
Oh gosh.
I mean, to be fair, Pat, will anything be worse than Anna Torv dying?
No, because I'm Torv team for life, and you want to know what? Everyone go watch Fringe. Everyone go back in time and rewatch the show Fringe featuring Anna Torv. Okay, but no, you're right, Dan. I think the worst of it is over because Torv is gone, and she also had a romantic end. She got one last kiss.
I reiterate.
Anyway,
Oh.
Anna Torv is the Red Ranger, 100%. Anna Torv is the Red Power Ranger.
Glad you're set on that casting.
Yeah, Joel is the Daddy Ranger. He's the Gray Ranger, which is the Daddy Ranger.
Of course.
And Ellie is she's Tommy. She's the Green Ranger.
Sure.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, more phenomenal, guys. All right,
Torvin time.
It's Morbin time.
Torvin time.
Torvin time.
It's
Torvin
Morbin.
time or The Last of Morbius.
It is both. It is both Torvin and it is Torvin. I combine them. It is both Torvin and Morbin times, guys. Oh my gosh. Is there anything else we have to talk? Is there anything else we missed? Did we miss anything about this episode?
I mean, we didn't talk about Ellie finding some tampons. We didn't.
We didn't.
That was a great moment as well.
In the beginning, and
We
then
didn't talk about,
highlighting the
like
plane.
Yep. And
All
two,
right.
like, hey, it went down on a Friday, and by Monday,
That sucks. I did notice that. That sucks. That the apocalypse started on a weekend.
Yeah, for real. Couldn't have waited till
Ruined plans.
weekday
Why
started.
couldn't- yeah, Monday. Monday would have been a good day.
Sucks.
and two, like, legitimately, like when everyone's talking about Bill being like, hunkering down, like, but if he didn't stay in his house, he probably would have been killed.
Yeah.
I'm really happy with the way that they transitioned from, Joel and Ellie walking, seeing some unpleasant sights and the reality of what happened during that weekend and the day of, that unfortunately people were sacrificed and killed who weren't infected. Towns were raided and people were kidnapped. Well, I wouldn't want to say kidnapped, but yeah, I mean, but Bill stayed. Bill was right to stay.
Yeah. Poor Joel. This was one of the sadder parts of the episode.
Ooh,
When Joel
I wonder what
revealed
airline he flew.
probably Spirit. Probably Spirit.
Definitely Spirit. Air
Spirit.
Canada.
Yeah, one of those. But yeah, it's just the show continues to show like, and what's so great about it is we in the modern world can see that and see the government rounding up people and executing them, and it's like, oh, that definitely would happen. It's not that far of a suspension of disbelief to kind of think that, yeah, and from episode 2 and 3 we kind of learned that the virus, it did damage, but I think the majority of the casualties came from the bombings and
the casualties. Absolutely
Yeah.
good for this.
That was the big starting point of the death tolls. So we knew people were getting, innocent people who weren't infected getting killed already. But just to get the shot of a mother and her baby being loaded onto that truck, and then seeing what would probably be the corpse in the field of both of them.
No, and that's a great difference between source and adaptation, because do they ever explain why Bill is by himself in that town in the games?
I mean, don't they pose him as like in a similar situation where like he is like, he loves to set his traps, he's in his own town, like he's a survivalist, like they framed him a similar way.
Yeah, but this kind of shows you like he's alone because the rest of the town got rounded up and executed. And so
in the game though, like and Lastrina, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not as, in the game it's not as heavily guarded. So you're fighting clickers and
yeah, it's like a much like actual like, because whereas what we see in the show where it's like a section, like almost a neighborhood, that Bill has like blocked off, like the immediate house, and then with the fence. But you're in the game, you're like exploring like almost like an entire town. You're going place to place, building record store to school, and like there's barricades of that you're trying to block off like all the clickers, and there's a lot of clickers. So like it's different in terms of where he's blocked it off, like in the show compared to the game, where he has almost like more free reign, but still like he's got traps everywhere. Like you'll like there's this moment like you're walking trying to find, but and there's like a clicker who like walks into a trap like at the end of like an alley and explodes. I'm like, whoa, shit, damn. I was like, Ellie.
Yeah, and your introduction to Bill is Joel falling for one of his traps.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it's Frank that falls in Bill's hole.
Hot.
All right.
All right, guys.
With guns, wanting a gun, and getting upset when Joel stashes his assault rifle. Like, there's not much ammo out there for it, which is true. Again, a big part of the game is scavenging for ammo. That's why in episode 2, Joel, what are you doing going loud, man? You gotta shiv that clicker, dude. Like, what are you doing, dude?
And also we get a kind of a view. One thing that I have noticed in the past couple episodes is we've spent time with Ellie, but we haven't really delved into Ellie's character as much as we have with Joel. I think because of that opening prologue, that prelude with Sarah, and before everything happened, we kind of understand Joel more than we understand Ellie. We kind of been journeying with Ellie, but this episode kind of shows us a little bit inside of her mind especially when she's dissecting that. Guys, this is another question I had. What would you call, like, with the clickers are the ones that click? What was the one that she dissected? And yeah, what do you call it?
Oh, that was still just just an infected.
An infected?
Yeah,
I thought it was like a stalker. No, not a runner or a stalker, because it hasn't fully.
Yeah, it's like in between an actual runner and a clicker. It's still like transitioning, and it was just like buried.
Yeah, stalker.
Potentially stalker. Yeah, so we see her dissected, and we see this like darkness in her eyes, this like anger, this intensity, and we kind of saw that at the end of the last episode too. Like, I noticed that she didn't want to leave Tess behind. She was very angry about the whole Tess situation. I would be very angry if I was her too, losing Anna Torv. And
absolutely, Tornado never dies.
The Torv team. So we kind of, I really like that we're building with something to Ellie, and I don't know what we're building but I feel like we're starting to build to some darkness, to the darkness inside of Ellie.
Totally cool. She has a gun.
Yeah, now she's got a
Oh,
gun.
I'm so here for Ellie with a gun.
100%.
Speaking of that shot, I really appreciated just that scene in general, and props to the makeup team. The fact that we just got so up and close with that stalker and seeing just the discoloration of the eye, what the skin, if even skin anymore, as she took a thin slice to the forehead, like seeing those layers, that to me was just perfect. That was really cool to see.
I hope the episode you watched was the one with Tammy 2. The first time he runs into Tammy 2.
See, I was thinking the episode with Tammy 2 where he goes to like the wood carving convention and like wins for his chair.
Yeah.
Ron Swanson for chair.
For chair. Other people also for chair.
Just him and Home Depot. I know more than you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. Good old Ron Swanson.
Can I open a question up to Pat,
Yes.
Dan, and Jack?
Oh,
Now that
Oh my
Now
gosh.
that,
I called you
Oh
guys.
my god. Twilight Zone shit.
so now that Joel and Ellie have the car, what do you think's going to happen next?
I think they're just gonna go for a nice, relaxing road trip, and
I think
nothing else is
episode
gonna
4,
happen.
they're gonna make like a quick stop off in New York City, get a slice.
Yeah, and obviously New York is completely untouched.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's on an island. How could anything get
Yeah.
there?
New
According
York is. Go ahead, Dan.
No. Continue your joke, please.
New York is the powerhouse of the United States, as we know. It is a
That wasn't a
fortified. It is the greatest state out of 50. So it will withstand this fungal infection. We will use herbicides and whatever we have to. We got
Pizza
we got
Rat
dollar
saved the day.
slices.
Ellie and Joel are gonna go to Chicago, and Ellie's gonna ask if they can stop for pizza, and Joel's gonna say no.
Do it.
I'll just say, Connecticut, we're a big state, all right? We got a big, massive.
Also, good pizza in Connecticut, though.
They do got pretty good pizza.
According to Twitter, though, they're going to drive around, run into Melanie Linsky's character, who's going to further promote the gay agenda. So I'm all here for it.
Oh, let's go.
Let's
Yes,
go. Let's go.
So we'll see.
I don't know. I never know what I'm getting into with this show. I
Same
think
here.
I know. I didn't expect to
Yes.
I didn't expect a deeply romantic love story for episode 3. I don't know. More Anna Torv? Anna
Did you
Torv
not
comes back.
expect them to cast all these great actors and then be like, hey, shit, we only have the budget for you for like 1 to 2 episodes max. We're going to have to cut your scenes in episodes 4.
Well, most likely you're going to become, a fungus zombie. So it's all
That's a
good.
great point. When they cast this thing, I'm like, Anna Torv, Nick Offerman, Murray Bartlett, like this cast is stacked.
Fire.
Like this is
Dead.
gonna be such a
Dead.
great
Gone.
series. And they're all
Literally.
gone.
With the
But
Nick
hey,
Offerman.
you know what? At least we've got Pedro Pascal the whole way through.
Daddy.
It was funny because during the episode we're watching, my friends who we all played the game, obviously, and I was like, hey, yeah, I wonder if like Nick in the middle of the episode, I wonder how long Nick Offerman's going to stick around. I mean, like, is they going to make it stretch it out to a couple episodes, maybe?
Dead.
Dead. Gone.
Gone. Nick written Offerman, am I right?
We have a
And with
lot.
that, I'm gonna leave.
All right, Jack.
I do actually have to go, but you can find me on the Fantastic Four podcast every other Friday with Dan Bettenhausen, breaking down which director should make the next Fantastic Four movie. Thank you guys for having me on here. I apologize. I'm the reason why we were late. This is the gay agenda
Don't
working
apologize.
again.
Dude.
We apologize to no one.
It's a pleasure having you here as always, Jack. Talk to you soon.
Jack.
Have a good night, everyone.
Hey.
Good night.
All right, now Dan's outnumbered. Finally, yes.
Go. Wait.
It's
Gamers
Jack
bleed
count
on.
for 2 people?
yeah, he counted for 2. You
Or you
counted for 1.
I don't know what I was outnumbered with before with just one other person here.
Dude, it's clearly math. Come on, dude. Jeez.
Come on, dude. It's math, Dan. Everyone knows math. Guys. What? Like I
What's
feel,
up, guys?
I feel now how I feel after I watched the episode. I feel so drained. I feel so emotionally drained from talking about this heavy subject matter.
I will
did
say
it-
it again. Don't you worry. That will keep happening.
You need the
Thanks.
result of Iggly buff.
Thanks, guys. I really
Yes.
appreciate that. I'm gonna go back to reacting solely to Power Rangers. I will do 3
Are
episodes.
you
of
going to
Power
have a
Rangers.
reaction tonight? Power Rangers reaction tonight?
I'm surprised. I'm surprised I'm not getting bombarded in the chat.
When you start watching Power Rangers?
Guys, I do watch Power Rangers. Okay,
Oh, I didn't know that.
I mean,
I'm kind
Wait,
of
Power Rangers video. I mean, come on.
Power Rangers is amazing. 30th anniversary, shout out. 30 years of Power Rangers. I love it. Yeah, so a lot more of that content coming to the channel. For all of us, the Last of Us Power Ranger crossover fan base, you guys are going to get fed this year, all right? A lot of content crossover. But yeah, I think that's it. Unless anyone has anything else.
No, I'm excited to keep chatting and seeing everybody's reactions to these next couple episodes.
All right. I think that's gonna do. Oh my gosh! Like, geez, like I'm hoping for like a nice like half of next episode to just be a nice cross northeast country road trip, just like a nice drive up the 95. Don't think I'm gonna get that from the looks of things.
Say enjoy the happy episode. Hold it close.
Yeah, I think
Cool.
this is all we're gonna get.
Cool. All right. Great, guys. All right. On that note, I think that's going to do it. If you liked the episode, give it a huge thumbs up. Subscribe, hit the notification bell if you haven't. To stay up to date on all of our latest content. Paulina, where can the people find you?
Only here, and if you feel like following me on Twitter, where I'm very inactive, it is at Paul Tweets.
John, where can the people find you?
You can find me here on the Montyverse, fulfilling my contractual obligations. Possibly again on the Fantastic Four podcast, the #1 Fantastic Four podcast on the internet.
Presumably.
And also, you can find me on Twitter, not Mastodon or any of those.
Pterodactyl.
Whatever they're called.
Saber-toothed tiger.
Tyrannosaurus.
Add my name right there with an underscore in between. Again, we're gearing up for the Fast X trailer next Friday. So again, Fast and Furious content on my Twitter there. Also, Last of Us and other video game stuff and wrestling stuff as well. So get hype. Fast X. Let's go.
Let's go. Dan, where can the people find you?
As Jack mentioned earlier, you can find us every other week hosting the Fantastic Four podcast, the #1 Fantastic Four fan casting podcast on the internet, presumably, and at least until they're actually cast in the MCU, and then we might do X-Men or something. Here's my Twitter. Here, there. I don't know. Thank you, Paulina. And you can find me guesting on the Montyverse from time to time when I'm not trying to hostily take it over with Succession reactions.
Yes, we might be doing another live stream this weekend.
We're this close.
Talking all DC, all the DC announcements. Who knows? Maybe.
There were a lot of them.
Probably. There was a lot of them. A lot of DC stuff. I could talk DC for the next 4 weeks. So we got more DC
He
content.
came out James Gunn ablazing.
Oh,
This Marvel
bang,
shield.
bang.
Come on.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I can talk DC all the time. All right, guys. But anyway, you can find me on all the socials at the Montyverse. You can find me here on the Montyverse, and you can also find me in your dreams sometimes to hang out if you're lonely. So until next time, guys, stay versed.
Save, you can save.